Welcome back to Trump 2020 campaign advisor and Trump's 2016 campaign manager, a friend of mine, Corey Lewandowski. Corey, thanks for joining us on a very big week in D.C. Let's talk a little bit. Let's start a little bit with Georgia, if you don't mind. The runoffs look pretty bleak. It looks like we're going to have a, dare I say, Senate Majority Leader, Chuck Schumer.
You know, Eric, I was down in Georgia for a couple days. I campaigned down there with a number of people, Kellyanne Conway, Tim Scott, Mike Lee, Ted Cruz. One thing was very clear. The people of Georgia were angry. They were angry with the election results in November, and they don't think that their Secretary of State and that their governor did enough to ensure the ballot integrity process was in place for this special election. So I think some of the conservatives stayed home, and I'm very concerned that if David Perdue ends up not winning this race, you're going to have a uncontrollable far leftist in the U.S. Senate, and we're going to see dramatic change in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, it's a big concern when you have the House, the Senate, and the White House. I have a question for you, Corey. You were there. You fought when Lynn Wood went down to Georgia, said Republicans don't vote because it's a scam, it's rigged. Do you think that had an effect? I mean, I was trying to figure out, why would you do that? Why? It's almost like cutting off your nose to spite your face. Okay, it's rigged, but deal with it and go out and win it. Do you think anyone stayed home because of that recommendation?
Well, I don't know. Of course, it's possible. But what I say is this. Look what the alternative became. If you want to be mad at your governor or you want to be mad at your Secretary of State, we have a recourse for that. It's called the ballot box. And I think that you're going to see Brian Kemp and the Secretary of State have serious accountability when they decide to potentially run for re-election. You're going to see Republicans running against them. That's how you get even. But you don't get even by sitting the race out and just giving up. That's not what we're about. We are fighters as a nation. And what Donald Trump has taught us over the last 6+ years now that he's been in this arena is that it's better to fight than to lay down like dogs.
All right, Corey, you were there in 2016 when Trump took over, and you had the House and you had the Senate. What is Joe Biden? Is this a mandate, as they're saying on the left? This is a mandate for Joe Biden to go ahead and develop his policy and his agenda and deliver it?
Well, Eric, I think what the American people are going to see here, because the Democrats told us exactly what they were going to do. They're going to get rid of the filibuster rule in the Senate. They're going to potentially pack the Supreme Court. They're going to raise our taxes. They're not going to support our men and women in uniform. They're not going to support our men and women who serve on the front lines of the law enforcement community. They've been very clear what their agenda is. And I think we are, look, we're a nation that has a lot of resolve to it. We've been through something like this before when Barack Obama passed Obamacare, the bill that you had to pass before you could read it, when he had both the House and the Senate. And so we better put our seatbelts on and strap in and hope that David Perdue can still pull this out in Georgia.
Yeah, and if he doesn't, I'm, again, to let our audience know, we're taping this prior to the AP calling that race, but it looks like, in all intents and purposes, that it will go to Jon Ossoff. However, let's talk about if it does, and that's the likelihood here, and we got to be honest. Elections have consequences, Corey. You know, there are conservatives like you and I who are scratching our head going, how in the world could we get to a place where this many people voted for an agenda that you just outlined? Changing the Supreme Court, something that's been, in place for decades, the Supreme Court, 9-person Supreme Court, changing it because they didn't like the way it breaks down right now because of Donald Trump putting 3 members on the court. Changing the way we look at high schools, changing the way we look at gender, sex, changing the way we look at everything. Half the country voted for this, Corey. I mean, are we antiquated? Are we just stuck in the mud and way back in 2019? What's going on here?
No, Eric, I think there are some fundamental flaws, and they have hid behind the world of coronavirus to allow people who I don't believe had the legal authority to vote in the last elections. And the truth is, when you look just statistically at the rate of people whose ballots were kicked back for not matching the signature verification in the state of Pennsylvania 2 years ago, 3% of those ballots were returned. Now, 0.03%. And we saw a significant increase in people voting because of the COVID virus world through the mail. What that means is people who probably were not eligible to vote were voting illegally. And I think that's the real concern that people have. So yes, elections have consequences. We have to have a system in place whereby only valid votes are being counted. If there's signature verification or if there's a voter ID in place, those things have to be adhered to regardless of the world of COVID, or else we're no better than a third-rate democracy or a third-rate dictatorship. So look, that's the first thing, is we have to fix the election system. And then the next thing we have to do is we have to be vigilant. And you know what, Eric, maybe Joe Biden received 80 million votes. It seems really hard to believe, but maybe that happened. Now we have to be very careful of what's coming down the pipe, because I've never heard the term "a woman" before at the end of a prayer. You know, amen, as you all know, comes from the Latin word meaning I believe. It isn't meant to be gender specific, but that's where the left has gone. You can't say mother or father, sister or brother on the House floor. These are some of the arcane rules that they're putting in place to take our country away from us. So we have to be vigilant. I think you're going to see, like you normally do, when one party, whether it's the Republican or Democrats, have complete control in Washington, 2 years later, there's a big backlash. And I think Donald Trump is going to have a lot to say about who continues to serve in Republican Party politics. He's raised over $250 million since Election Day. He has a 97% approval rating amongst Republicans, and he's not going anywhere anytime soon.
So I want to pick up on that right there, Corey, because going forward, Eric Trump this week tweeted, he said, anyone that doesn't support Donald Trump in the Senate this week will be primaried. You know what? I'm on board. Are you on board? I think a lot of people, American people, are on board with that.
Well, look, Eric, without divulging a private conversation, I spent a number of hours with the president yesterday talking about our opportunity to go find candidates who do support his agenda. And specifically what my focus is going to be over the next 2 years is exactly that, recruiting Republican candidates and going back to what my core competency is, which is running races, running congressional races, senatorial races, governor's races against those people who don't support the Trump agenda. I think you're going to see a lot of incumbents who didn't expect a primary challenge. That's coming, and I'm going to be on the side of the Make America Great Again team.
Yeah, you want to know something? I think you're 100% right. I think there's going to be a backlash against those. I will tell you who I believe is, I'm going to point this right at Mitch McConnell. I'm going to lay this at the altar of Mitch McConnell. He gave Trump a hard time about getting that $2,000 check out prior to the election. I believe that would have changed the election on November 3rd. And then going forward, he still pushed back after that. And I think that cost Loeffler and Purdue in Georgia. Mitch McConnell, do you agree that he should be held responsible for the losses?
You know, Eric, I'll tell you here, when he finishes this term, he'll be 84 years old and have served 42 years inside the United States Senate, literally half of his life. This is not supposed to be a career job. This is not supposed to be where you come here and you consume all of the power in Washington, D.C., you centralize it in your own system, and then you control everything in people's lives. And I think that's why we have to go back and looking at term limits. We have to be vigilant. Look, Mitch McConnell got elected in the state of Kentucky with the help of Donald Trump. If Donald Trump had not supported him, I think he would have had a much, much more difficult race. And then you turn around and you don't support the man who helped you get elected. This is everything that's wrong with people in Washington. And I am serious that it's going to be my job, with the help of President Trump, to go out and find candidates who will run in Republican primaries. I look at maybe races like Adam Kinzinger's race in Illinois. There's some great candidates up there. I look for candidates who are going to run in Georgia, both for the governor's race and the Secretary of State's race. And I'm going to find candidates around this country who believe in putting America first, who want the support of this president and embrace it, not the ones who hide from him.
All right, we're going to leave there. I got another candidate, potential candidate. His name is Corey Lewandowski. Keep your eye on that man right there, folks, because that man should be in a Senate seat or higher. Corey, thank you for your time.
Thanks, Eric.